Hi there, it's Sandy, your sister and your friend. Welcome to today's video. What I'm going to share today is based on my understanding from a book called A Course in Miracles. This book, I hadn't even heard about it until about 9 months ago, but I've been studying it since then. And the reason it appeals to me so much is that the basic tenets are that God loves all of his children unconditionally, and also that we're all one with each other. And because we are an extension of God's love, we're called to love and to forgive each other in this world. And those ideas had already just resonated so much in my heart. So that is why I keep studying this book. Now, what I'm going to share with you today, as I say in a lot of my videos, is kind of a recap of my journey. So I'm not trying to get you to believe something differently. I'm just sharing my journey and my experience here with you. This topic, though, what I have to say might appeal to you, even if you don't have a Christian background and you're not doing this Course in Miracles, never heard about it. Just because there's so much evil in this world, it just seems rampant. And what the evil that we seem to be seeing or hearing about on the news, it really is heart-wrenching to hear that we could do the kind of things to each other that we hear about. So I wanted to say basically what I understand from this Course in Miracles, that the root cause of the evil that we see in this world comes from the idea that we have separated ourselves from God. That idea alone is enough to cause us to do the horrific things that we hear about. In this Course in Miracles, the editor of the complete edition, his name is Robert Perry. He writes this in the introduction about how the idea of separation happened. Robert writes this: "We had a thought that we could go our own way, that we could be above the other sons and even above God. This was impossible, for all of reality is changelessly held within the power of God's authorship. And so we withdrew into a dream of separation. We collectively dreamt an entire universe in which everyone was separate, selfishly contending with each other, and locked inside vulnerable bodies that aged and died. So first, we dreamt up this entire world, this entire universe. We collectively everything, all of God's creation, dreamed this dream together. And so the author of this world that we live in is not God, but it's our collective ego that came up with this world where pain and suffering and disease and death, these are considered normal. This is not something that a God who created us would think of, that this is a normal thing that we should go through. And to keep us separate from each other, our egos need to keep us in conflict with each other. So again, in this introduction, Robert Perry writes this about the ego: "Its basic mode is attack, both in the form of attack thoughts, which is judgment and condemnation, and attacking behavior. We try to cover up our attacks with smiles, but their basic intent is still to take from others their self-respect, their possessions, their status, their innocence, for the sake of our gain. All we really receive, however, is a crushing burden of guilt. Over time, our quote-unquote sins accumulate so that we end up dragging our past misdeeds behind us like heavy chains. Deep in our unconscious, we believe that we have hopelessly defiled our original innocence, that we have made a devil of God's Son. This belief is the hidden cause of our suffering, for it is a constant affirmation that we deserve to suffer as punishment for what we've done." So you can see that if we each of us, if we think of ourselves as irredeemable sinners, then of course we're going to think that we deserve everything negative and everything that horrible that happens in our life. And if we think of ourselves in that way, it's easy to see that all of our thoughts would go in that direction. We would have so much evil in our mind, and that would, and our, just to have it play out in our lives, we would do a lot of evil things. So the deeds that we would do and the thoughts that would just reflect the evil thoughts that we have. And then when we find the burden that we're carrying, this burden of guilt, when we find it so unbearable, we would use the psychological tool called projection to try to offload this guilt onto somebody else, because we would now find other people, places, and things that we could say, they're the problem, not me. So we project these thoughts in our mind onto somebody else in an effort to, so that we can now no longer have them. Instead, we can judge these other things, these things outside of us, and people, especially outside of us, that they're bad, that they're guilty, so that we can proclaim ourselves to be innocent and pure. We're actually blaming them for the thoughts that came out of our own mind. Now, the Course says this about the ego's use of projection. It projects conflict from your mind to other minds in an attempt to persuade you that you have gotten rid of it. This has a number of fallacies which may not be so apparent. First, strictly speaking, conflict cannot be given to another precisely because it cannot be fully shared. A second fallacy is the idea that you can get rid of something that you do not want by giving it away. Giving it is actually how you keep it. So you can see how this world filled with evil would all come from this deceptive view that the ego gives us about ourselves. First of all, that we're guilty, and how it would use projection to blame everybody else for what we feel, and yet we still feel it because of our oneness with each other. But the good news is that the continued existence of the ego is dependent on our mind, because it's just a made up thought system. And we can stop listening to the ego by changing our mind. This is what the Course says about the ego. It says, do not be afraid of the ego. The ego can be completely forgotten at any time, because it has always been a belief that is totally incredible, meaning hard to believe. The whole purpose of this Course is to teach you that the ego is unbelievable and will forever be unbelievable. You know, you can see, if we go back to the original thinking that the cause of evil in this world is the idea that we've been separated. If you thought that you were doing this life all alone, you can see why it would produce fear and anxiety and pain and suffering. You can see where it would come out of that idea of, oh my gosh, I'm here. There's nobody here to help me. But that's not true. It's not true. And you have never been separated from God who created you. It's impossible for any of us to be separated from God. And if we could understand our true identity, that we are the beloved children of God, it would change everything for us, and it would change our experience here in this world. You know, as we look at the world and we say, you know, the way that we've been doing life isn't really working. Evil is getting more and more and more and more devastating. So what I invite you, I'm not asking you to believe, I'm not asking you to do this Course in Miracles. It certainly is not for everybody to do, or doesn't resonate, I should say, with everybody as the path that they would go on. But I know that God gives every single one of us a teacher that we can follow so that we will end up knowing who we truly are. So it takes a lot of courage to say, hey, I'm going to believe things differently. I'm willing to believe or to see things differently than I've been told is the way to see them. It takes courage to do that. But I know that if I have the courage to do that, I know that you're my brothers and sisters, and we're not different. And you, deep down inside of you, also have the courage to do that. So all I invite you to do is to say, I'm going to look past the ways that I've seen people before, and I'm going to see Christ in them. When I look at them, I'm going to look beyond the behavior that's playing out in front of me, and I'm going to look through the eyes of Christ that I know I am, and I'm going to see through their eyes that they are also Christ. We're going to see things the way they really are, and not that they're separated, but we're all one. And so I just invite you to that, because once we see through, we start loving them and we forgive them, and we start seeing life through the eyes of forgiveness, we're going to see a different life. Because as we forgive, we're not going to be afraid of things anymore. We're going to forgive everything that we've been afraid of. And instead, anybody who was our enemy, we're going to now see them as our brothers and our friends. We can do that because we can change the way we perceive things. We're going to let go of the ego's thoughts, and we're going to see through the eyes of Christ and see this world differently. And this is how we wake up from the ego's dream. And this world then vanishes, and we're going to see the real world that God created. The Course says this about that. It says, can you imagine how beautiful those you forgive will look to you? In no fantasy have you ever seen anything so lovely. Nothing you see here, sleeping or waking, comes near such loveliness, and nothing will you value like unto this, nor hold so dear. Nothing that you remember that made your heart seem to sing with joy has ever brought you even a little part of the happiness this sight will bring you, for you will see the Son of God. Isn't that beautiful? We have all of us have that to look forward to. So let's wake up, oh Son of God, and let's see each other the way we truly are. God bless you. I love you so much. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Hit the like button. Leave me a comment. Tell me, what's it like to wake up for you? Just drop those illusions. See people differently. I invite you to do this today. God bless you. Bye-bye.